So there's a ancient truth that the Buddhists figured out about 2,500 years ago that most people will never even learn in their lives, let alone develop the skill that goes along with this truth. And I think that's why some people who get into Buddhism are typically in their 60s or 70s, they're seniors, because they've tried everything else. And when you're old enough and you have enough life experience and you've tried all these different things, you find that, well, the Buddhist teachings are actually what works really well in the moment as well. And that teaching and that truth is the truth of suffering and the teaching of non-attachment. So, Buddhists say that life overall can be suffering. Some people mix that up. They say, life is suffering. That's what the Buddhists believe. It's not necessarily true, actually. Buddhists believe that suffering exists. They're just saying that it exists. And I think that it's not even a belief at that point. It's a truth, right? That's why it's called the first noble truth. Suffering simply exists. So when you can accept that, then you can move on to the second noble truth, which is suffering exists because of attachment or clinging or tanha. So in Pali, the word tanha means clinging. And this suffering, or dukkha, which is the Pali word for suffering, comes from this clinging. And the skill of non-attachment is a skill that takes potentially years to develop. But once you do, it changes everything. It changes the way you interact with the world. It changes the way that you interact with yourself. It changes the way you see others, all for the better. And this skill that I'm speaking of non-attachment, brings peace as well. But again, the dukkha, life consists of suffering. It's there. It's not always there, but it is there. And so to give you some examples or a little story of everything I'm talking about. Yesterday I wanted an ice cream really bad. I wanted an ice cream from Cold Stone specifically, and Cold Stone closed 10 minutes before I wanted this ice cream. But it would take me 15 minutes to get to Cold Stone. So I had to accept that I was not going to get this ice cream that I desperately wanted. Now, the sensation of not getting the ice cream, the thought, was quite unpleasant. And I had two choices in that moment: to react with anger, with greed, wanting this. I wanted this Cold Stone so bad, why don't I get it? And then furthermore, developing all of these stories behind it. Why didn't I think about this earlier? Why didn't I, plan ahead? Why didn't I know exactly what time they close? Why aren't they staying open later? It's only 9 o'clock. All of these stories that further perpetuate this dukkha, this uncomfortability. When in fact, what I chose to do was simply accept it and let go of that clinging. And this is the Buddhist teaching of non-attachment. Remember, this is different than detachment. Detachment simply means that I am removed from the situation, like a nihilist. Well, who cares anyway? Ice cream sucks, Cold Stone sucks, the world sucks, who cares? That's detachment. I'm not even going to participate in caring, because whatever. Detachment actually creates more problems in the future, because our subconscious mind still processes this pain and this suffering. And when it does, it creates traumas that we later may inflict upon others. Later, our choices may be based on these traumas as a reaction, simply because it's been programmed deep in our subconscious, and we may not have even realized it. So detachment does not mean that you do not still experience it. You just are perceiving it as not happening. You are perceiving it as not affecting you. You are perceiving it as not pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. You're just saying, well, it's just there, whatever, who cares? But non-attachment is honoring it, is becoming present with that experience. It's saying, hello, negative experience, I see you, but I will not let you break down my wall. I will not let you enter my soul or my heart. Hello, negative experience, you are there and I see you and you are part of life, but that does not mean that I have to let you affect me more than you already are. And this is basically the teaching of non-attachment, and is basically the teaching of suffering. So it goes much deeper than just simply life is suffering. It's that life consists of suffering. Life consists of uncomfortability, but it is our decisions in those moments that change if we have more or less of it. And in fact, you get to a point where when you practice enough, when you're mindful enough, when you build up upekkha, which means equanimity, which is one of the 4 divine abodes, one of the 4 supreme states of being in Buddhist philosophy, when you finally get to that point, it doesn't even affect you at all. It's just there. Whether it's a pleasant, unpleasant, or just simply neutral sensation, it's just there. This requires intense focus, intense dedication, and also a lot of time. Maybe that's why older people like this, because they're retired and they've tried everything else, and finally they found a way to end and liberate themselves from their own suffering. But that doesn't mean you can't still do it right here, right now. Doesn't mean you need to be a monk to understand it. But in the Theravādan practice, this secret skill that most people never even know that exists can change everything for you for the better. And I share this with you in hopes that you hear these words and that you study the Dhamma and that you find these truths for yourself. Because I have, and my God, is life so much better now. It's still hard. There's still hard times, always. Still tough days. But the sooner that I can recognize my clinging, the sooner I can recognize my own suffering that's being perpetuated by my own choice, my own perspective, and my own relation to the experience, the sooner I liberate myself from the suffering. The sooner I let go, and the sooner I find the peace within that is always there, the peace in this moment. And of course, that's easy for me to say right now, but this is the dress rehearsal, and when we put on the real show, that's when the tough times happen in our lives, and how we react in those tough times is important. May you be well, may you be free of suffering. Practice non-attachment. Take care.